There is a list that the people who repair audio equipment for a living keep, and they do not share it with you. They share it with each other. It gets passed around in the back rooms of repair shops, in private technician forums, in the quiet conversations between people who spend 40 hours a week with a soldering iron in one hand and your dead $2,000 machine in the other. It is a blacklist, and every name on it is a brand that, from the outside, looks completely respectable. Beautiful logos, glowing reviews, marketing campaigns built around words like reference grade and legendary and audiophile approved. But the technicians know something the marketing departments spend millions of dollars trying to hide. They know what actually fails, they know how often it fails, and they know that a frightening amount of what is sitting on the shelf at your local electronics retailer right now is engineered not to last, but to expire, right around the moment your warranty does. Today I am going to walk you through 5 entries on that blacklist. 5 brands, or in some cases 5 entire product categories, that the repair community has quietly learned to avoid and exactly why they avoid them. And I want to be clear about something before we start, because this matters. This is not about which brand sounds the best in a 5-minute showroom demo. Anything can sound good for 5 minutes. This is about what happens at year 3, year 5, year 7, when the music stops and you call for help and discover there is no help coming. The 5th entry on this list is the most dangerous of all, because tens of thousands of people are enthusiastically buying it right now today, convinced they are making a smart, premium, future-proof purchase. They are doing the opposite. And by the time this video is over, you will never look at that product the same way again. But to understand why the blacklist exists at all, you first have to understand what has happened to this industry behind closed doors, because the rot did not start in the factory. It started in the boardroom. Over the last decade, the legendary names you grew up trusting have been bought, sold, gutted, and flipped between corporations and investment groups at a pace most enthusiasts have not begun to grasp. The name on the faceplate stayed the same. Everything behind it changed. The engineering teams got shuffled, the factories moved, the cost targets got tightened, with every new owner promising to honor the heritage while quietly thinning the parts inside. So when a technician tells you to avoid a brand, they are very rarely talking about the brand your father owned. They are talking about the hollowed-out thing currently wearing its name. Keep that distinction in your head, because it is the thread running through every single entry on this list. And it is the difference between a buying decision made with real information and one made on brand recognition alone. Number 1 on the blacklist is the modern mainstream AV receiver, and the specific cautionary tale here is the wave of failures that hit brands like Onkyo and its sister brand Integra. Walk into any big electronics retailer and you will find these receivers stacked floor to ceiling, loaded with HDMI inputs, surround decoding, room correction, and feature lists so long they need 2 columns on the box. To a repair technician, an entire generation of these machines represents one of the most notorious engineering failures in modern consumer audio. The problem has a name in the repair community. They call it HDMI board failure. And for years it was so widespread that it became almost a running joke, except nobody who paid for the receiver was laughing. Here is what actually happened inside these machines. The HDMI boards were built around capacitors and chips that simply could not survive the enormous heat a receiver generates in normal everyday operation. The components degraded under constant thermal stress. They lost their function. And then one ordinary afternoon, the receiver powers on, the front panel lights up, the display works perfectly, and yet there is no picture and no sound reaching your television. The brain of the machine is intact. The single most failure-prone board in it is dead. Technicians report seeing the same affected units come back through the shop 2 and 3 times, sometimes within just a couple of years, with the identical fault every time. Go and read the owner forms for these models, and you will find them flooded, hundreds upon hundreds of people, describing the exact same symptom, the exact same heartbreak of an expensive box turned into a paperweight. And here is the honest caveat, because this list is built on honesty. Many of these brands made genuinely good-sounding receivers, and the popularity that produced hundreds of failure reports is partly a function of just how many units they sold, But popularity is not an excuse. When a known thermal design flaw turns a flagship machine into junk just outside the warranty window, that is not bad luck. That is a structural problem. And it is why the technicians, when they buy a receiver at all, gravitate toward the manufacturers with decades of consistent receiver competence and more robust board engineering, and steer hard away from the brands with a documented graveyard of identical failures behind them. If a product category is famous among the people who fix it for breaking the same way over and over, that is not a coincidence you want to gamble several $100s on. Number 2 on the Blacklist is the all-in-one lifestyle audio system, and the textbook example here is Bose and the sealed ecosystem trap. Walk through any shopping mall in the country, and you will see them gleaming under the lights. Elegant miniature speakers, a sleek central console, packaging that whispers premium before you have heard a single note. And that is precisely the problem, because Bose is not really selling you an audio component. They are selling you an ecosystem, a closed dependency, and the technicians understand exactly what that means down the road. The fatal flaw in these lifestyle systems is forced obsolescence baked in by design. The central console permanently fuses together two kinds of technology that age at completely different speeds. The audio side, the amplification, and the speakers is mature and stable. A good amplifier from a decade ago is still a good amplifier today. But the digital side, the control modules, the proprietary connectors, the software, ages out in just a few years. When a proprietary control module fails or the company stops supporting a protocol, you can end up with perfectly functional speakers tethered to a brain you can no longer operate. You did not just buy speakers. You implicitly bought a dependency on that company's continued goodwill. And here is the part that infuriates repair professionals the most. Bose has historically not made spare parts available for failed internal components beyond the most trivial items like cushions and cables. So when something inside the console dies, there is frequently no repair path at all. The technician opens it, identifies the fault, and then has to deliver the bad news that there is nothing to be done because the part does not exist on the open market and the manufacturer will not supply it. There is a second, quieter layer to this too. These brands are famous for publishing limited technical specifications, which makes it genuinely difficult for a careful buyer to compare what they are actually getting against a competitor on the merits. And there's a long-standing reason for that opaqueness. In the golden era of hi-fi retail, certain lifestyle brands were notorious for resisting direct side-by-side comparison against properly engineered separates, because a fair comparison would expose the enormous gap between the price and the actual acoustic performance. The whole model was built on brand perception rather than measurable fidelity. Here is the honest caveat. These systems are not bad at what they are actually designed to do. They are convenient, they look fantastic in a living room, and for a casual listener filling a kitchen with background music, they deliver exactly what was promised. The trap is buying one believing it competes with real hi-fi, or believing you will still be using it in 15 years. You will not. The technicians do not buy sealed lifestyle ecosystems. They buy standards-based components from manufacturers who keep replacement parts flowing for decades because they have seen the inside of too many beautiful little boxes that nobody on earth can fix. Number 3 on the Blacklist is not really a single product at all. It is a pattern, and the pattern is the constantly flipped legacy brand, the storied name that has been passed between corporate owners so many times that nobody can honestly tell you who is really building it anymore or what their priorities are. And the clearest case study in the entire industry is what has happened to one of the most respected names in British loudspeakers. Trace its ownership over the last several years and your head will spin. It was acquired by a technology company, then folded into a consumer audio conglomerate, then that conglomerate was bought by a medical technology company that paid over $1 billion for the portfolio, and then just 3 years later, that same medical company unwound the whole thing and sold it, along with names like Denon and Marantz and Polk, to Samsung's Harman division for around $350 million. Sit with those numbers for a moment. A portfolio bought for over $1 billion, sold for $350 million a few years later. That is not the financial signature of a company lovingly stewarding a heritage. That is an asset being marked down and moved off a balance sheet. Now, every single one of those transitions came with the same press release reassurance. Nothing will change. Your favorite brands will keep doing their own thing. Distribution, roadmaps, and service will stay in place, at least for the first year. And that phrase, at least for the first year, is the one the technicians have learned to read very carefully, because after that first year is exactly when the cost engineering tends to begin. Here is why this matters to you specifically as a buyer. Every time a brand changes hands, the institutional knowledge erodes. Engineers leave, suppliers change. The people who knew how to support the products from 3 owners ago are long gone. And when you need a part for a 5-year-old machine, you are now depending on a service infrastructure that has been reorganized 3 times since you bought it. The honest caveat here is real and important. Consolidation is not automatically fatal. A big, stable parent with deep resources can genuinely stabilize a brand that was floundering, and some of these names may well come out stronger. Samsung is not going bankrupt next quarter, but the repair community's hard-won rule still stands. And it is a rule you can apply yourself without knowing anything technical. If a brand has changed ownership more than once in the last decade, treat every promise about long-term parts and support with deep skepticism, because the people making that promise today may not be the people who have to keep it tomorrow. Quick pause, because I genuinely want to hear from you on this one. Have you ever owned a piece of gear from a brand that got bought out and watched the quality or the support quietly fall off a cliff afterward? Drop the brand and the story in the comments right now. Those accounts are worth more than any spec sheet, and I read every single one. Number 4 on the blacklist is the software-dependent smart speaker, and the defining cautionary tale of the entire category is what happened with Sonos, because it is the single clearest demonstration of a danger that almost nobody thinks about when they hand over their money. Your hardware can be working flawlessly, and the company can still break it from a server you will never see. Start with the most infamous example. A few years ago, this company introduced something it called recycle mode, pitched as an environmentally responsible way to retire your old speaker when you upgraded. But activating that mode did not recycle anything in any meaningful sense. It permanently and deliberately bricked the device, rendering it completely inoperable, so dead that even electronics recyclers could not bring it back to resell. The backlash was severe enough that the policy was eventually walked back, but the devices that had already been killed stayed dead. And then it got worse in a way that affected even loyal customers who had done nothing wrong. The company rolled out a complete redesign of its mobile app, promising it would be faster and better than ever. Instead, it was a catastrophe. It stripped out basic features people relied on, it broke working systems, and it left longtime owners staring at expensive speakers they suddenly could not properly control. The fallout was enormous. The company's market value took a hit measured in the hundreds of millions of dollars. The chief executive ultimately departed, and a class action effort emerged alleging the new app had been falsely advertised while quietly degrading the performance people had already paid for. And here is the truly chilling part for anyone who values keeping their gear. More than a year after the disaster, owners were still reporting that ordinary updates were knocking their systems offline, making speakers vanish and reappear, breaking the ability to group rooms together. This is the fundamental, inescapable problem with any audio product whose core function depends on a company's software and servers. The technician cannot fix a server that no longer exists. There is no capacitor to replace, no board to resolder, no part to order. When the company decides, through incompetence or strategy or simple business failure, that your device's software era is over, the device's era is over, and your soldering iron is useless against it. Here is the honest caveat, and it is a genuine one. These systems are, when they work, extraordinarily convenient, and multi-room wireless audio done well is a real and lovely thing that traditional separates cannot easily replicate. Plenty of people use them happily every day, but you must go in with both eyes open. You are not buying a permanent object. You are renting an experience that persists only as long as the company keeps the lights on and the code maintained. The moment you understand that, you stop thinking of a smart speaker as a buy-it-for-life purchase because it is structurally incapable of being one. And now we arrive at number 5, the most dangerous entry on the entire Blacklist, the one tens of thousands of people are buying right now with total confidence that they are being smart. This is the premium wireless speaker system from brands that once stood for genuine hi-fi values, the sealed, app-driven, acoustically optimized statement piece that costs anywhere from $600 to several $1,000s per unit and promises you the perfect marriage of audiophile ambition and wireless convenience. To a repair technician, this product represents the worst of everything we have already discussed, combined into one glossy injection molded enclosure, with one additional trap layered on top that makes it uniquely doomed. Here is the combination. First, like the lifestyle systems, these devices are completely dependent on digital infrastructure, proprietary streaming protocols, app authentication, cloud verification. The same server dependency that killed the smart speaker category lives inside them, which means the moment that companion app is discontinued or the authentication server goes dark, the device can lose its core functionality even though every physical component inside it is perfectly intact. But second, and this is the part that makes the technicians wince, manufacturers cram the complex signal processing, the amplifier stages, the crossover networks, and the power output all into a hermetically sealed, inaccessible enclosure. And those amplifier output stages, running under sustained thermal load inside a sealed plastic box with nowhere for the heat to go, do eventually fail. That is not a maybe. That is physics. When that output stage dies, there is no repairable path. The technician cannot even get inside without destroying the unit, and even if they could, the parts are proprietary and unavailable. The device simply becomes electronic waste. So you are paying a premium price for a machine that is simultaneously dependent on a server lifespan you do not control and physically engineered so that it cannot be repaired when its hottest, hardest working components inevitably give out. Here is the question that no marketing brochure will ever answer for you. What happens to your $2,000 wireless speaker in 5 years when the app is discontinued and the authentication server is switched off and the amplifier board has cooked itself? You are left with a heavy, beautiful, totally inert object. The honest caveat is that these devices genuinely do sound impressive out of the box, and the convenience is real, but you are buying a sealed, server-dependent, unrepairable luxury item and being told it is an heirloom. It is the opposite of an heirloom. So here is the principle that ties this entire blacklist together, the smart counterstrike against every trap we just covered. Stop buying gear whose core function depends on a corporate server. Stop buying machines famous among repair techs for failing the same way every time. Stop investing in brands that vanish their replacement parts within a few years of sale, or that have been flipped between owners so often nobody can promise you support. Instead, buy components that do one thing, that publish their specifications, that can be opened and serviced, and whose makers commit to parts availability for the long haul. The people who repair these machines for a living have already rebuilt their own systems around exactly those principles. Now you know precisely why. If this opened your eyes, share it with someone about to spend real money this weekend, and tell me in the comments which brand has personally let you down, because your story might be the one that saves the next person. A thumbs up genuinely helps this reach the people walking into the trap right now. And subscribing means the next one finds you too.